All right, so today we're finally doing the Porsche Cayman 987 reliability. Let me make sure I hold this camera right so my finger's on the mic. I'm going to tell you today everything that usually goes wrong with these cars. I'm going to also tell you in the very end, is it reliable? Can you actually trust it? So let's move the new Sequoia out, pull this thing up. We'll tell you a little more about it. All right, so as you guys know, for the most part, Porsche is one of the more reliable sports car brands. They really pride themselves on the build quality. They pride themselves on a lot of stuff. So this is a car that doesn't have a lot of interior problems. We'll start with the interior. We'll go to the exterior. How about that? This is for the 987 model, mostly. But generally, if you look at a 911 this era, it has exactly the same door panels, exactly the same seats, the same console, the same everything. To a degree, even the same dash, the way the dash is. So you have to look at it like that too. What are you looking for? The Cayman is a great, I'm not going to even say a base model car, just a different car, right? Mid-engine instead of rear engine. So the engine's up under here instead of under the trunk, or the hatch, you should say, right? And these cars don't generally have a lot of issue. As you can see here, maybe you can see, we'll get the light in here on it. They do use a lot of the rubberized covered, dash pieces, door pieces here by the door handle. Somebody's actually resprayed that, I could tell. And the console is, this one has a carbon fiber console, but that comes with a plastic rubber coated console, as a Volkswagen does, as an Audi does, as a BMW does. Mercedes, same way. And that stuff doesn't hold up. Now, the Cayman's also had an issue some years, the headliner will fall down. Now, this one's been redone. It's not an Alcantara by any means. It's in some kind of black fabric. We might change that, but when it comes down to it, it's a brand new headliner. Do I really want to rip it out just like I have Alcantara? Does anybody really give a rat's ass? I don't know. You have to figure out what you want in the car. Overall, this car with the auto box has the Tiptronic. If you get, was it 2009 and up, you get PDK, which is dual clutch. This car does not have dual clutch. It's an 06. We decided against that after owning a 6-speed manual one of these cars before. I know there's a problem with the shifter cable. They were about $800. I don't know what they are now, probably a little bit cheaper, $400 or $500. Porsche recommends you replace them every 22,000 miles. That's a lot of money for just to have a manual. Then you have clutch issues and all that kind of stuff. So as a general rule, the Tiptronics and these do not have an issue. So this is the same transmission as a 5 HP, or it is a 5 HP 19 ZF box. It's the same transmission as a lot of the BMWs have, a lot of the Audis have, a lot of the Volkswagen. It's just in a transaxle format, meaning there is no separate rear diff. And this car being a mid-engine, the engine sits up here. The transmission sits about right here, bolted to it. There's nothing behind it. It only has an axle bolted on each side. And so taking it in or out, servicing it is not really very difficult. It's probably the easiest one to get to. Now, as you notice, the S's have the dual exhaust come out. The regular base model only has the one bigger tip. And there was, what, 30-some horsepower difference from the regular to the S. But, the S, you get some little bigger wheels. You get a little bigger this, a little bigger that. A little bit of a different lip on the front bumper. See the silver lip down there. Slightly different fog lights, believe it or not. We had that problem before when I had to buy some from my other one. The covers, they were different from year to year, and it's a based S model and this and that. And what this car does not have, it does not have a lot of the trim problems most of German cars do. As you can see here, all the trim has not rotted out. You see a little bit on the cowling piece. But man, I tell you what, with a lot of the other cars these years, the BMWs, all this would be all rotted off. Now these cars, either engine, the 2.7 or 3.4, doesn't really have any issue at all. And you see that reflect the price on these cars, right? The price of these cars does not drop. It just does not. And if you're in different countries, I know you can buy them cheaper. Here in the States, a car like this, spec like this, will bring you probably mid-20s. A really good deal would be like 22. If you get a more standard color black or gray or silver, you can find them as low as 19. But really, for the most part, 19 is about the bottom. 19.9 is about the bottom rung. You see one every once in a while that's probably got some issues. Maybe the interior is not the nicest. Maybe the paint's not the nicest. And you'll see those go for 17 to 18. But most of the time, 19 is the absolute bottom rung of that. So for the exterior of the car, we don't really have any clear coat problems on these cars. We do have apparently a headlight issue. If you run on them high a lot, see it's charring that just a little bit. And of course, you got a headlight hazing, which will fix that. That's not a problem. Overall, not a bad car. This car has HIDs on it now, especially a base model, but some S's will actually have halogens in it, and that's fine. If you're into halogens, that's fine. You can put LED bulbs in those now, so it's not such a big deal. But you have to be able to see far ahead, because this will not clear a lot of roadkill. Armadillos here where we live at, that will not clear dead animals on the road, raccoons, whatever have you. And if you hit something with this car, the front bumper is very expensive, very, very expensive. And you can see in the front trunk, this is actually a metal tub. So if you crash the car very much, you're going to smash up that metal tub under the carpet. You could buy a replacement tub. They're about 800 bucks, right? So this car cannot take a big crash. It just is not that kind of car. It's a very small car, and you don't have a lot of room for air. Unfortunately, most stuff, even that car, if you crash that car really bad, it's not going to end well. I mean, don't hit stuff. That's your best bet, right? I'll bring the little light with us here. This car does have the Brembo brakes. This car is in need of brakes. This car is about to get some brakes. And everybody keeps saying how expensive parts are on these cars. They're not really that expensive. Obviously, a car without the Brembo package, you know, like a BMW or like a base model, you're going to be able to buy brakes cheaper. I could buy cheap brakes for this car, but I don't really want to do that. Just like the M5 that has the big brakes on it, we did Brembo, authentic Brembo pads on it. We're going to do Brembo pads on this. Probably going to do Brembo rotors. They're about $480 for all 4 rotors, all the pads, new Brembo sensors, like the whole works. The whole car's brakes, right? And if you go cheap, the car's not going to stop well. This car has like different pads on it right now, and it's weird. It's not what we're looking for. Not that I drive this car that fast at all, but if I want to run fast around some corners, what I don't want is to hit the brakes like on the M5, and it's not very long and the brakes are fading. And that car has enormous brakes on it, but it's also a very heavy car. The M5 does brake fade quickly. Will new rotors fix that M5? Maybe. But on this, if I do it all in one swipe, we're going to be good to go. Now, on this car, I did put catless headers on it. There's not a lot of aftermarket mods for the engine on this car. This car makes roughly 300, like 295, 297, depends on who you talk to. Some people say it makes a full 300 horsepower. Okay, that's flywheel horsepower. That's not wheel horsepower. What is that? Probably through a transaxle, that's probably still 280. Something like that. 279. I don't know. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it will definitely propel you to your death pretty quick. The difference from this car is a good handling car. The M5 is not. The M5 is 507 horsepower. It'll throw you into a corner. It has the horsepower to throw you into a corner that you cannot make it around. This car has a lot of horsepower. It could do the same thing, but the limit is extremely higher on that. A lot of that's due to being mid-engine. And it has a small engine. It doesn't have a V10. It has, a flat 6. And the one thing about these cars, you can mod, you can get the clear engine cover. You take the carpet out, This is where you access the engine on top. You get the plexiglass engine cover, right? The only thing I don't like about these cars, as you've seen in the last videos, you have to add oil and your coolant and stuff back here. It's a little bit weird. It's a little bit inconvenient. You can see somebody's already scuffed up that aluminum trim. Wasn't me at some point. And, you know, it's just a little, it's a funky setup. That's just all there is to it. But it's typical Porsche stuff. I mean, it's just what you have. The old 911s would have it under the hatch, over on the side, where you add the oil and check the oil and that kind of stuff. You know, definitely a really cool car, but it is very much a specialty car. And the thing about this car is I'm 6 foot, basically 6'4". I fit in it no problem. If you're very tall and you buy a 911, you will fit in that better, just because that's a 2+2 car, which means that back here, instead of having the engine's back here, and you have 2 small seats on a 911. So you could technically put the seat back a lot further. You know, at this point here, the seat is all the way back, and I could fit in no problem. It could go back further. I mean, I could use it back further, but you can see here, it's actually touching the trim. There's also another access panel behind the seat you can take off to access the front of the engine. You can access the belts. You can see a lot of the water pump, a lot of the pulleys, you know, any of that kind of stuff. So the access behind the seat, the access up here, but really a majority of the work is done from under the car. So if you're going to buy a Porsche, you cannot have a lift and own this car. It's just going to be annoying. But since everything's done from the bottom, having a lift is definitely a massive, massive gain. Now, sitting in the car, there's not a ton of functions in here. Somebody's put an aftermarket stereo in it, obviously. There we go. Even though it says Porsche, it's not factory. It has some really nice fit and finish. The build quality from the steering wheel to the dash to the door panels to the carpets, the console. This is not the console, the factory console. The gear shifter is nice. Everything is very nice, right? They had some problems with the buttons peeling off of the stereo stuff. This one's actually been sent out and redone, refinished. And so they'll never have that problem ever again. I think usually they're silver. This one's actually been painted black, and everything trimmed out very nice. Everything else is fairly simple. You can see the carbon fiber additions the guys put on. Little tiny headliners, or not headliners, sun visors. That's all your garage door functions, your memory seats, your windows. It has the front fog lights. It has the rear Euro fog lights where it makes one of the tail lights brighter. It does have, you know, fairly nice gauges from the factory. This car did have the factory Bose stereo. I'm not sure if they all have that or not. I don't think they do. This one does not have the buttons on the steering wheel for the stereo. I don't like that about it, but it's not really a car you're listening to the stereo in anyway. And you can just tell all the build stuff, all the quality on the rearview mirror is all nice. Everything is just really, really good in here. So, I mean, it's 2020. Is this car worth low to mid 20s? It depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a 2-seater, comparable to a Z4, to a lot of the comparable 2-door stuff, this is a very mighty car, right? You get a lot of bang for your buck. Is it worth it? Depends on what you want. If you're looking for a Porsche, you don't want the convertible life, you're not into the Boxster convertible life, most of us are not, and you want a hard top, this is definitely a costly way to go. A 911 of this year is probably closer to 30 grand, maybe 35, depends on your mileage, depends on this, depends on that. So I'll leave that up to you guys. The reliability for 2020, I think it's pretty damn good for this car. It's gonna be it, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. Have a good day.